Welcome, everyone. This is your 716 Fix. It is Monday, February 8th, 2016. My name is Billy Weltzer. I'm a senior journalism and mass communications major at St. Bonaventure University, and this is my capstone podcast. A little bit about it. It's a Buffalo sports-based podcast. I'm going to be talking about everything from the Bills to the Sabres, the Bandits, even the new female professional hockey team, the Buffalo Beauts, and we'll even talk some Big Four basketball. So jumping right into it, the delay on my podcast has been about a couple days now. I woke up this morning, was ready to post it, and then I found out the news about LeSean McCoy. Now, exactly what happened is still being worked out, but these are the details that I know of as about an hour ago. It is about 10 o'clock right now, so about 9 o'clock, this is what I've known. He was involved in a fight with off-duty police officers at a lounge in Philadelphia around 2:45 a.m. on Sunday. Now, LeSean McCoy was there with four people, and they're all suspects in this. Apparently, it was an argument over a bottle of champagne. What I read was LeSean McCoy apparently took a bottle of champagne out of one of these guys' hands. They got served before him or something like that, and they got into an argument, of course. And apparently, LeSean hit him. He went down, and he and his boys started hitting this guy pretty bad, kicking him a little bit. And one of the officers ended up having broken ribs, a broken nose, a sprained thumb, and there was a cut above his right eye that required stitches. This is really bad for LeSean. He just finished his first season in Buffalo, where he was selected to the Pro Bowl, but he was hurt a lot and probably wanted a better season. The Bills won 8-8. This is huge. I mean, being in Philadelphia, he loves it there. The people there, I lived in Philly for a while. They love LeSean, and they were sad to see him go. And to see something like this happen to him is pretty brutal for the Bills organization that has seen a lot of headlines. With the hiring of Rex Ryan, and then this year the hiring of his brother Rob. Hiring the female special teams coach, which is great. Congratulations to her. I hope she does a great job, and wish her all the best. But going back to LeSean McCoy, I mean, this is not exactly what you want to start your offseason with. I mean, this is serious legal trouble, and this is one of the things that we're seeing in the NFL a lot is there are some serious bad actors out there, and the Buffalo Bills can't afford to have one of their star players be one of them. You can't see LeSean McCoy as your number one running back doing something, being in the headlines like this, whether he did it or not. The Buffalo Sabres have already seen it with Evander Kane. It can be a huge distraction. Luckily, it's the offseason, but again, that's where a lot of these players can get in trouble. So I worry for LeSean McCoy, and I worry about what the Bills are going to do, because this is pretty serious stuff, especially with a lot of the topics between police and African Americans. It's one of those things where, is that going to come into it? That's the first thing I thought of when this came out was, oh no, this is a Buffalo Bills player. And second, I was like, well, this is interesting because it's now with off-duty police officers. I feel if it was someone else, it would have been a little bit different. So that's something we need to keep an eye on. I will definitely update that in the podcast that I plan to have coming out later this week. But moving on from LeSean McCoy and the Bills, just that update that I know of now. I'm not going to really go into it more. I'm looking at what do the Bills need to do in the offseason. Now, one is keeping their players out of trouble. There's no way you can prevent them from doing something stupid. If they're going to do something stupid, they're going to do it. You can't stop players all the time is what I'm trying to say, but keeping them out of trouble is a huge part of keeping your team together and keeping the fan base involved, and seeing stuff like this, people are going to be a little worrisome about LeSean McCoy and his place in Buffalo and on the team, and that's something you just don't want for your team. So that's one of the key things I want the Bills to work on, is just keeping your players out of trouble, whether it's minor, major. You just want these guys to focus on the next year and hopefully making the playoffs. Second, it's a two-part, is one, Mario Williams. I think his time in Buffalo is done. Unfortunately, he was being dropped back into coverage. He didn't like it. The schemes and the systems didn't really work out with him on the defensive end. He's a great pass rusher, and you just didn't see that this year. And he was set to make about $19 million next year. I believe he'll be released of his contract. The second part of this is to re-sign players after he's released. The Bills need depth at this point. They need players that they know are skilled and they know they have, and they need to bring them back. There's plenty to be re-signed, and so I think the Bills will be focused on that. Doug Whaley, the Bills GM, has said that, and that's one of the things that they really need to work on as well. Getting these guys back into the Bills uniform and really getting them into the system of Rex Ryan in his second year. And my third thing is the NFL draft. They really need to focus on having another good draft. Last year, they didn't even have a first-round pick, but they got Ronald Darby, and he played great this year in the second round. That was their first pick. So the Bills having a first-round pick this year, if they can have a good draft, this could be big. But what do the Bills need is the question. I personally say there are plenty of areas where they can improve, but it's more along the lines of depth and having, just a complete team. Because it's football. People are going to get injured. So you need to have players that are able to rotate in and make a difference. If I had to go with the first round pick for the Bills, and the second round pick, I think I would go linebacker, wide receiver. I think the linebacking core just needs that extra person that can filter in and really play well with them. And for the second round pick, I think a good, tall, red zone threading wide receiver that has the ability to go up, get balls, and take some pressure off Sammy Watkins. You have Robert Woods, you have Chris Hogan, who are good players, but I think they're more of a number 3 wide receiver. I think there would be more people that would agree with me than disagree. They're great players, work really hard. Robert Woods fights for every yard, and it's great to see. I love it, but I just think he's a number 3 receiver. It doesn't mean he's not a bad player. Or he's one of those players that should get buried into a roster. He should get targets and playing time. It's just I think they need someone that's a little bit more consistent that can take the pressure off of Sammy Watkins and give Tyrod Taylor the other person to throw to. Because last year you looked at Sammy, you're like, okay, well, if we're not going to throw Sammy, who would we throw to? It would have been Percy Harvin, but he was gone for a while with injury, and we have no idea if he's coming back. So that's one of the things I would like to see the Bills focus on, is getting another wide receiver. Maybe another defensive end, since they will be losing one. If this is assuming Mario Williams is cut. But also getting another defensive end wouldn't be bad. Maybe you get rid of him the next year. I'm not sure. But that wouldn't be a bad position to get. Safety, I'm a little skeptical on the safety part. I think we're okay safety-wise, but I have that down there. Maybe a late pick for some depth, special teams, stuff like that. Maybe a running back. I mean, with this report of LaShawn McCoy getting in trouble, it looks like, or at least getting investigated, the Bills might need another running back, because who do you look to now? I mean, you have Carlos Williams, which is great, but that's not good enough. I mean, you need a better running back than Carlos Williams, because he's one of those players that isn't that 3-down back that the Bills would need. He can break off big runs. He scored, deep in the red zone this year because he's a big body, but I just don't think he's quite there yet. I mean, he was a rookie, so he didn't have to be there yet. To me, those are the positions I really think the Bills need to work on. Running back is kind of up in the air. Got to see where this LaShawn McCoy thing goes. But linebacker, wide receiver, defensive end, maybe safety. Maybe get more depth on the offensive line, defensive line, stuff like that. But I think the Bills, if they have a good draft, they can really improve upon their depth and really become a good team at all the positions and not have a weakness on offense or defense. And that brings us to a break. I'll be back to talk more about the Sabres and Big Four basketball, the Bandits, the Buttes, and everything about Buffalo sports when we come back. Welcome back to your 716 Fix. Hopefully everything with LaShawn McCoy and the Buffalo Bills gets settled relatively quickly. It doesn't look too good right now, but we'll see as everything unfolds, and that will be updated on the next podcast for sure. But going into the Buffalo Sabres, it's been an interesting season because they've been playing so much better, but you don't see it. Through 53 games, they're 21, 26, and 6. That is 27th in the NHL, and they're 1 point out of last place as of Monday night. They have a game Tuesday against Florida at home, so they have a chance to possibly beat a very good team in the East this year, and hopefully extend that gap between them and the last overall seed in the NHL. maybe getting people excited about the NHL draft and the Sabres tanking and trading players at the end of the season. I'm not ready for that again. I'm really not ready to hear about, the Buffalo Sabres purposely losing, purposely getting rid of guys so they can have a better draft pick. It's just something I'm not ready for. I've heard about it for the past 2 years, and I really don't want to go over it again. So besides that, it's been a tough season for the Sabres. They have been playing better, but it just doesn't show with their record. Being sub 500 at this point is a little disappointing. You'd like to see them at least be 500, but it's one of those things where they just can't finish out games, and they're not getting the right kind of production and consistent production out of players that they need. First, starting with the ref job that we saw on Saturday night in Boston, where Jamie McGinn was going in on what I'd say is a breakaway, and he gets taken down by a guy diving and breaking up the play, and he gets taken down, and it's a penalty. They call tripping, but it's not a penalty shot. And I guess I wouldn't have a problem with that. At least he got the penalty until you saw what happened in overtime when Rasmus Ristolainen turned over the puck, chased Brad Marchand down, and was pushing him with his hands, and they awarded him a penalty shot. Brad Marchand got the shot off, and I thought it was a weak call. It was one of those things where it is overtime. It's like playoff hockey. You have to get through something like that to win the game. You can't rely on the refs to make a weak call to help you out when you have the game on the line in overtime or in the playoffs. It's one of those things where you just have to play hockey and you have to fight through something like that. He barely touched him. It shouldn't have been a penalty shot, and he ends up scoring, and they lose in overtime. And that's brutal because the Sabres played a great game. And that's disappointing and kind of how the Sabres season is going. They'll lose by 1, and it's going to be a heartbreaker. And it's obvious improvement because you have Ryan O'Reilly, Jamie McGinn, Rasmus Ristolainen is playing well. Sam Reinhart has made leaps and bounds from last year. You have Jack Eichel now. Evander Kane is bringing speed and physicality, but it just isn't showing up in the standings. And it's unfortunate because they're in every single game, it seems. There's the occasional games where they let a couple slip away and, the game's over then. But they're in every game. And it's brutal for the fans to watch them, lose it within 5 minutes of the game ending and sending it to overtime because, the puck bounced off someone's leg and they got an open net or something like that. It's just brutal for the Sabres and their fans. And, you got to feel for them, but you also have to be able to win those games. You can't rely on your goalies making every stop. And, if you're going to lose a 2-1 game, you probably should have scored more than one goal. And that's where the production of the Sabres needs to be a little bit more distributed because you see Ryan O'Reilly, Jack Eichel, and Rasmus Ristolainen leading your team by a lot in points, and that's pretty much it. Where's Matt Moulson? Brian Gianta's not doing all that much. Evander Kane has scored and put up a couple points, but I'd like to see him be the top goal scorer on the Sabres. Marcus Foligno, Johan Larsson. I mean, these guys, they're not exactly dependent on to score when I'm talking about Foligno and Larson. I mean, Evander Kane and Matt Moulson are getting paid to score, and Matt Moulson is not. But when you go back to Foligno and Larson, you see the effort and the work they're putting in, but you'd like to also see the garbage goals because the good teams, they have the third and fourth lines contributing, not on a nightly basis, but a lot more than what you're seeing the Sabres do now. So it's one of those things where you'd like to see the Sabres come together as a squad and play a full 60 minutes and have everyone contributing. And when you see that, you'll finally have that game where you're like, okay, the Sabres actually have it now. They're starting to buy into Dan Biles's system, and the players are playing well, but it's still just not there. And it's cause for concern because now you come to the trade deadline, which is February 29th, and you might see some players leaving. Now, there's Chad Johnson and Jamie McGinn that are going to be out of a contract at the end of the season. You have Larson Foligno as well. Weber is also an unrestricted free agent. And what are you going to do? What is the general manager, Tim Murray, what is he going to do? And I think for me, what I would do is I would re-sign goalie Chad Johnson, and I would re-sign Jamie McGinn, who came over in the trade with Ryan O'Reilly on draft day when they drafted Eichel. They brought over Ryan O'Reilly They brought over Jamie McGinn. We had a trade for Robin Lehner, and David Legwand was part of that. And I believe Legwand is a UFA, unrestricted free agent, at the end of this season, and I would like to see him come back. I thought he's played pretty well on the fourth line. He's good at penalty killing, and he, from what I hear, is a great locker room guy. And David Legwand was a very high draft pick, so he's been around the league and he knows what he's doing. And having veteran leadership like that is great, because you never know. Brian Gionta could say, "Hey, I'm hanging up the skates at the end of this season," stuff like that. So you really never know. But I would like to see Chad Johnson resign simply because he is that backstop that can push Robin Lehner, who's supposed to be the starting goalie and who's come back from his high ankle sprain that he suffered on the first game against his old team, his first game for the Sabres, and suffers the high ankle sprain in the second period, and Chad Johnson is given the starting position, saying, "Here you go. We're depending on you from day one, essentially." And I think he played very well. He's been consistent and solid for the Sabres and can give them good outings and a chance to win. So I think he's deserved it. And he's one of those players, he's like Marty Biron when Ryan Miller was in between the pipes. He gave the Sabres that encouragement that if Ryan Miller wasn't on his game, Marty Biron could step in and he could give you that win. And he was always making Ryan Miller better because I personally thought Marty Biron was the starting goaltender when he was backing up Ryan Miller. And I think Ryan Miller knew that, saying, if I'm not playing to my best of my abilities and I'm not putting forth 110% effort, Marty Biron's going to come in and take my spot. So I think that was good for the Sabres, and hopefully they could have something like that again with Lehner and Johnson. So hopefully Johnson's re-signed. And Jamie McGinn, I think he's been a surprise because everyone was looking at Ryan O'Reilly saying he's going to be the changer of the team, and we all kind of knew that, but Jamie McGinn has certainly surprised a lot of people. Physicality, it's a nice soft touch in front. I think he's a great player, and hopefully he'll be re-signed as well. The other plays, I really don't know. We'll see, and it will be analyzed in podcasts to come. So we'll have to see where it comes to as it comes to the trade deadline, and when it comes to what the Sabres really want to do. Are they going to be looking for young prospects, draft picks? Are they going to be selling draft picks with these players for even better players? You never know. Tim Murray's got a lot of tricks up his sleeve, so we'll see. The upcoming games for the Buffalo Sabres are tomorrow against Florida. That's at home. And then they'll be in Philadelphia Thursday. I cannot wait for this game. Philadelphia is a brutal place to play. I live there, and I've gone to see the Sabres when they were playing Philadelphia, and it's an electric atmosphere whenever you're there. Being an opposing fan is horrible when you have to go into Philadelphia and face those fans. I always love playing them. Two solid teams. We'll see what happens there. Then you have Montreal Friday and Colorado Sunday at First Niagara Center. So we'll have the Buffalo Sabres in a stretch where there are some solid teams where they really need to come through and play together as a team, play full 60 minutes, and lock down defensively. Hopefully they can get some good goaltending behind them, and everything will go well for them. And we're going to take another short break, and we'll come back talking about the Bandits, the Buttes, and the Big Four basketball with Canisius, Niagara, UB, and St. Bonaventure when we come back. Welcome back to the last segment of your 716 Fix. Again, my name is Billy Weltzer. I'm a senior JMC major at St. Bonaventure University. I hope you enjoyed it so far, and we're going to get right into the Buffalo Bandits here. They are 3-2. They are now tied with New England, who they beat Saturday 12-10. They are now tied for the lead in the East, and Rochester's a half game back at 2-2, but it's good to see Buffalo playing well. They've been historically pretty good, and they've been led by leader John Tavares, who was playing at 45 in a league where it's pretty rough there. I mean, those guys are throwing around their body, and he was just a legend. Everyone respected him. He's now beyond the bench, but it looks like he's passed the torch to 24-year-old Dane Smith. He now leads the NLL with 37 points. He's got 16 goals and 21 assists in 5 games. This is unbelievable. Dane Smith put up like 107 points last year. He's, looks like he's going to maybe go 100 plus this year as long as he can stay healthy and he keeps producing. I mean, this is big, and it's great for Bandits fans because I've been to a couple of their games, and they're electric, and the fans love them. I'm sure Smith loves them, and it's just one of those things. It's great to see Buffalo go from someone like John Tavares to Dane Smith and the passing of the torch. Now that this young guy who can, create his own legacy. It's great. I'm glad the Bandits have someone like this, and hopefully they can improve upon their success over the past couple of years. The next game they have is in Georgia on Sunday. Georgia's looking to bounce back from a loss that snapped their 3-game winning streak Saturday in Calgary. So hopefully they can play well there. It's a big game. Hopefully they can start getting on the streaks and stuff and pull away from New England and Rochester as well. So all the best to the Bandits, and good luck to Dane Smith as he leads the NLL with 37 points. Moving to the Buffalo Beauts, this is the first season of the NWHL, and the 4 teams that are playing, Connecticut, New York, then you have Buffalo, who's actually playing New York, and they're 15 games in. They're 4-8-3. That's the third out of the 4, but it's one of those feeling out processes for not only the team but the league itself, and it's great to see that Buffalo is getting something historic like this. The first women's professional league to get paid in the United States. That's big for Buffalo, and it's good to see that they're diehard fans, that they go to pretty much anything. I know some of their attendances have been pretty good because people really like to support their hockey teams there. And it's, again, a feeling out process. So for years to come, hopefully the Beauts can get a lot of people coming out to their games over at the Harbor Center. They're playing, decently well. I mean, only 4 wins, but it's one of those things where you don't have to win every game to see production and see growth, just like we see with the Sabres. So hopefully the Beauts can string together some wins to close out their season, and all the best to them as they go on their journey with this. I call it a historic league because this is big. I love watching women's hockey. Watching the Olympics is awesome. They have so much skill, so much speed, and having a league like this can really boost that. And I really hope the Beauts can bring a championship to Buffalo, because that's huge no matter at what level, whether it's the Sabres, Beauts, Bills. I think it's great. And hopefully they can do well. So moving on to Big Four basketball. This is probably the most biased part of the show, mostly because I do go to St. Bonaventure. I love the Bonnies. I grew up a UB Bulls fan, mostly because I live like 5 minutes away. So those are usually the 2 teams I kind of follow. But there are a couple others that I have to mention. Niagara is 6-19 on the year and 4-10 in the MAC. Their last game was a loss at home yesterday, which was Sunday, against Iona, which was 75-61. This young team, I mean, it's been kind of a rough year for them, but again, they are young, so they do have some promise. But they have lost 3 straight, so hopefully the next game they can jump back in the win column. And it's been a tough year for them, but the future's bright. Another team that's kind of has a younger squad, and it looks like they'll have a bright future, but it's not looking all that great right now, is Canisius. They're 11-14 and 6-8 in the MAC. Yesterday they beat Ryder 67-61, excuse me, and they snapped a 4-game losing streak. So that's one of those things where a big win like that, to snap a losing streak like that, can do a lot for a young team. I've been part of young teams, and when you are losing a lot, it's tough to find yourself winning and pulling out tough games. So it's good to see the Canisius getting a win against Ryder. Moving on to Buffalo and the UB Bulls, they're 14-9 and 7-3 in the MAC. They beat EMU last night, 80-70, and they've won 4 straight. So the UB Bulls are playing some pretty good basketball right now. And moving on to my personal favorites, St. Bonaventure are 15-6, 7-3 in the A10. They won yesterday against St. Louis, 65-62. Jalen Adams hit the game-winning 3 at the buzzer. It was awesome. I was sitting watching with my friends. We went crazy. It was one of those plays where we kind of thought that they wouldn't get it off because Posley started driving the lane with like 5 seconds, but Jalen Adams has a pretty quick release. It's kind of like a Stephen Curry release. I don't know a ton about basketball, but it's one of those quick shots that he splashed it. It was awesome. So it was one of those things where St. Bonaventure fans kind of went crazy, and we did this to St. Louis when we were in the A10 tournament, and they were the number 1 seed. We're not going to talk about it, but it was only Jordan Gathers who hit the game-winning 3. But again, we're not going to speak about it. So St. Bonaventure basketball is pretty exciting. They've won now, I believe it's 3 or 4 straight after losing 3 straight. So hopefully the Bonnies can continue their winning streak and hopefully make a good run at the A10 tournament, because winning the A10 tournament is your ticket to the NCAA tournament. We saw that when Andrew Nicholson was here. So hopefully Bonaventure can continue to produce a lot of offense, because that's really what it's come down to. They are pretty solid defense, but they're putting up over 80 points a game. So they're also high on the free throw, I believe, percentage. I think they're shooting just under 80%, and it's a top 5 in the nation. So that's what Bonaventure needs to do to become a better team, especially when you have a dominant backcourt, but you don't have a ton of size. You just need to start chucking up threes, and unfortunately they weren't hitting a ton last night, but hopefully they can hit some in the future. So thank you for listening to your 716 Fix. Again, my name is Billy Weltzer. I'm a senior JMC major at St. Bonaventure University. This is my capstone podcast. Thank you for listening, and I should have another episode out in a couple days now, so look forward to about Friday. Have a good one.